Hello there, and welcome to another episode of Cutting Through the Bullshit. I am your host, Dr. Stephanie Snyder, and I am a high performance mentor. Through my unique blend of strategy, mindset, and intuition, I help men and women to cut through the BS in order to create the life and business they desire. So, we're going to talk about the energy in which you speak to people. This was brought to my attention a couple of weeks ago, but I've really noticed it in the last few days, how we're speaking to people. And I notice it because I tend to be the kind of person that will jump out of a plane and jump off a cliff and build the plane on the way down, right? I am not terribly risk adverse. And so I am more apt to go after things that maybe someone else wouldn't go after. And this has been an interesting journey with my husband as we're starting to flip houses and get into investing in real estate. Because I'm like, yes, I see the potential in everything. And he's like, oh my God, no, I don't want to do that. And I'm like, well, somebody's going to do it. It might as well be us. And he's like, no, I don't have the capacity for that. I'm like, all right, fine, right? We've looked at hundreds of houses at this point, it feels like. But nevertheless, I noticed this because, one, I'm a mom. And so when I speak to my children, yes, I want them to be cautious when they drive or when they go out somewhere or when they're, whatever, specifically like when they drive. I'm like, that's a big thing for me. I'm like, okay, drive safe, right? Is what I do, because for a long time I used to say, be careful. But what I realized was that I had internalized be careful as don't take any risks. Make sure that you're safe the whole time and those kinds of things. And so I decided to switch the language, and I just tell my children, drive safe. Drive safe, know your surroundings, drive safe. But what's interesting is as I start to talk to people about the business that my husband and I purchased a year ago, and our real estate side of things, and also my coaching business, people unconsciously will share their fears with you. And oftentimes they don't, again, because it's unconscious, they really don't know that this is what they're doing. But they will share their fears with you. And so one thing that was interesting that had come up as I talk with people about real estate, everybody seems to have their own 2 cents about real estate. And it's quite interesting, actually, to me. But the interest rates are really high, so nobody's buying. Or, is there actually a profit margin in that? And don't do that. You could lose all of your money in real estate, right? Like, there are constant fears coming at us. My mom, she was not an entrepreneur, and so she has a fear around being an entrepreneur. My father, absolute entrepreneur, and so that's where I kind of sprung off from, is I want to own my own business. I don't want to work for the man, essentially, right? But it's just so interesting to when you're awake, not woke, awake spiritually, not woke politically. We're not going there today, or really any day. But when you start to pay attention to the way that people speak to you, you really do begin to notice their fears coming through to you. And on a previous episode, I talked about, are you spreading more fear or love? And so I've been really, really aware and intentional with the words that I'm speaking into my kids, because I don't want them to fear me. And I was actually I was legitimately doing some doom scrolling on Instagram the other day. I admit I do it from time to time. It's not very long. Usually after about maybe 20 minutes max, I'm like done. I don't want anything else in front of my face or the screen anyways. But I was doing some doom scrolling, and I saw this mother who had boys, and the boys were not listening. And so she made them do wall sits, and they were probably 10 and under. And I thought, wow, that's a really interesting way to get your kids to listen, is to force them to do wall sits when they're not listening. And again, this is not parent shaming by any means or stretch of the imagination. And I thought maybe I could make my kids like do burpees or something if they weren't listening to me. But then the more that I thought about it, I thought, when and where do I really want my children to listen to me, and how do I motivate them to do that? Because I don't want them to fear me, right? I don't want them to do something because they're afraid that I'm going to spank them, or they're afraid I'm going to make them do sprints or wall sits or whatever it is, right? I don't want my children to respect me out of fear. I want them to respect me out of love. And so how do you motivate that? And so I said something to them kind of matter of fact, and I said, listen, when you all ask me to order you something on Amazon, I'm pretty quick to do it, right? Yeah. I said, okay, you want me to continue to order you the things that you want on Amazon. I would like you to help me around the house. When I say, can you put your laundry away, please actually put it away. You don't have to do it that second, right? But when I say, hey, will you put the chickens up? Or, hey, will you help me put the cushions away before it rains? Or, can you help me with the garden or whatever it is, right? Like, just the help around the house, but the willingness that comes with it. Because I'm willing to buy you these things, I want you to be willing to help me. Now, could that be a mix in the way that they give and receive love? Yes, sure. Certainly we could go down that rabbit hole for sure, right? Where, oh, you're buying them to listen to you. Now they're going to think that they are owed something every time they listen. Okay, fine, right? If you want to psychoanalyze it, we can go down that route, but I'm not going to do it today. I was merely trying to figure out how I could motivate my children from a space of love as opposed to fear. And it seems to be working. However, I saw another one this morning that I am absolutely going to start to use. And it was this dad talking about how he got really tired of playing referee. He and his wife got real tired of playing referee and saying, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do this, you should be doing this, you should be doing this. And they got real tired of it. And so instead of saying you should or you shouldn't, they just started to speak into their kids, where they would say things like, well, I forget I think their last name was Taylor or something, right? And they would say, well, Taylors leave things better than they found them. And so it was an energy shift in their children saying, no, this is actually who I identify as. And this really goes back into a lot of the spiritual side of things in terms of if you look at the Bible perspective of this, it is, whose are you? Who are you showing up for? And if you believe that you are God's creation, you were created in his image, then you're going to show up in a different way than if you just think you came from an ape, right? Like, I'm not buying that. Absolutely created in his image. And so how am I showing up? And how can I speak into my children to show up in a more empowering way, right? I really want my children to show up fully for themselves and to glorify God at the ultimate level, right? And so how am I speaking into them? Because I've really, really gotten aware of the words that we're using. And it's so interesting to me how powerful a shift in your language can be, right? Go back to the cliche of, if you say you can, you can, or if you say you can't, you can't. If you say you can, right? Very small shift. And that, I think, is the thing that a lot of people miss, is that they're waiting for this big lightning bolt kind of a thing to strike them. But your life actually changes with these smaller decisions. These tiny little microscopic things that maybe don't necessarily, you're like, does it really matter that much? Yes. Yes, the words that you say to yourself really do matter that much. Something as small as I can't or I can is a huge like Grand Canyon kind of a shift. But a lot of us just kind of to the wayside. We're like, does it really matter? Yes, it really matters. And when you start to let those little things matter, the big stuff happens to take care of itself because all the little stuff is aligned, right? It's not hurting cats, as I said to my kids yesterday. So I hope you followed that train of thought a little bit. It came to me to talk about that stuff, and so that's what we channeled. That's where it showed up. But I'm sending you a whole lot of love. If you are new to my YouTube channel, thank you so much for being here. If you're listening on the podcast, I appreciate you. If you are a subscriber, thank you. Absolutely thank you. And if you would love to connect with me deeper, you can go to Stephanie Snyder, Ph.D. on Instagram, or head over to my website and connect with me there. I hope that you have an amazing rest of your day. And as always, be you, because the world needs more of you. Bye.